We got paged at 11:58 a.m. this morning to a fire at 1500 FM 967, known as the Armbruster property. We have now labeled this as the Armbruster fire. Preliminary reports as some workers were on site and accidentally backed a trailer into a guide wire to a telephone pole. The telephone pole shook, some lines touched, threw some sparks, and actually lit the ground on fire and resulted in the fire here we're at today. We've had units from Buda, Kyle, San Marcos, North Hayes, South Hayes, Wimberley, and Manchac, basically all the units here in Hayes County. And we brought in assistance with Starflight Helicopter doing water drops, and our partners at Texas Forest Service came in to assist us today. Back behind us, the Texas Forest Service has got a UE helicopter on scene. They also have 2 dozers on scene that are cutting a fire line around the perimeter of the property. Recent measurements is we are at about 70 acres with about 5 to 10 acres still of active fire. We're going to call the fire at this time about 40% contained. But right now we're looking good with the conditions and the way things are developing. Any questions on that so far?
So it's just in this area?
Yes, the fire currently has all resulted on just on the Armbruster property. It's remained on that property. The road Dove Drive here on our west has served as a fire line break between the Coves of Cimarron neighborhood and the fire itself, so it performed as a good barrier for us with the roadway, as a barrier between the fire and the residential development.
Are there any structures that are actively threatened?
There's no structures actively threatened. In fact, earlier there was a media report put out that we had evacuations being ordered. That was inaccurate information that was sent out. There was no evacuations ordered, and that was just erroneous information that was put out. I'm not sure. So we'll check back with our personnel here at Buda Fire Department and with Hayes County and just see how that information got out. I think there was preliminary reports to possibly spool up a evacuation center just in case it was needed, and in the process of considering the evacuation center, that it got put out that it was a full evacuation, but it was inaccurate information that was sent out.
With the road being blocked off, some people look like we're able to go back to their houses at that time. Is that correct?
Yeah, we're actually starting to work with the Sheriff's Department now and start to open up roads where residents can get back to their homes safely.
So that church mentioned at first, is that just on standby?
Yeah, that's a church that's on standby for our community, not for just wildfires. If there was flood development stuff taking place, that the church would be utilized as the evacuation center. So as there was talks at the beginning about whether that was needed or not, it just progressed too far with inaccurate information. I'm going to bring in our partners at Texas Forest Service to talk all about that because these are the experts when it comes to wildland firefighting and providing assistance to the fire departments throughout the state. So I'm going to turn that over to them and let them answer those questions.
Thanks, Chief. My name is Walter Flockey. That's F as in Frank, L-O-C-K-E, Public Information Officer with Texas A&M Forest Service. Can you repeat the question?
Can you speak to how the weather conditions may have impacted this fire, whether it's the growth or spread?
Yeah, so around the state right now, in the state of Texas, we're about 99% of the state is in drought. So that prolonged drought, as well as this excessive heat, has made our vegetation critically dry. So even on a day like today, where we don't have very strong winds or super low humidity, that fuel component is enough to create a large wildfire event like this one, just because our vegetation is so dry, from our finer fuels like grasses all the way up into our larger diameter trees. This prolonged drought and these excessive heat conditions just make the conditions critically dry and can cause a large fire like this.
Was this fire in a spot where it was hard to get to today?
Yeah, as you can see off to my left here, it's a very heavily wooded area, so fire crews, initial fire crews, our first responders out of Buda and Hayes County are able to make their way in with engines and with their hoses, but their hoses can only reach so far, and with fuels this thick, that's when they need support from aircraft and our heavy equipment like bulldozers. So that's why we're on scene now with bulldozers constructing containment line, and we're using the aircraft to get water on the areas that we can't reach.
How much water is being
That's a good question. I don't know the exact, do you know the size of that bucket that they're using?
Most of them are between 300 and 400 gallons.
Yeah, usually in that range of 300 to 400 gallons, the buckets that they use. We have a helicopter here that was based out of Smithville that we've had staged for wildfires, and they've also used Travis County Starflight as well.
Conditions are going to stay hot. Is the fire risk going to get greater, or is this pretty much as bad as it gets?
We don't see any improvement. You know, there are fluctuations day by day with the humidity and the wind speed, but if we don't get wetting precipitation, then that fuel component doesn't change. We're only getting drier, and the drought only increases if we don't get wetting precipitation. So the fire danger may not always be very high or extreme because we might not have critically low humidity or high winds. But as long as we're not getting that rain, then the fuels are still dry enough to support wildfires. Yeah, so we're requested by the local incident commander, which in this case would have been Buda Fire. So they request us when the needs exceed the capacity of the local fire departments. Obviously, this is a situation where heavy equipment like a bulldozer is really needed to help contain a fire, and aircraft are super beneficial as well. So that's when we get requested to support wildfires. It doesn't have to be a large fire, but once you get those technicalities like the terrain, the fuel types, that's when we're usually requested. In answer to your second question, we've been staffing around the state basically the entire year. We have crews that are staffed in Bastrop County, in Marble Falls, Gonzales, Fredericksburg, Killeen. We've been moving resources all around Central Texas to have them ready to go and be quick to respond to wildfires in the area.
Have there been any injuries or anything with firefighters?
No injuries here.
No reported injuries.
What about the original worker who crashed through the pole? Or back in the
No,
pole?
they,
injuries?
we,
Okay.
yeah, the original individuals that were on scene, they were actually trying to assist to put the fire out when we showed up.
And how many helicopters are being used, and where are they having to get their water from?
There's 2 right now. What's the filling?
The Cullen Country Pond, the
Okay.
neighborhood pond across the street.
Cullen Country Pond.
And how many planes were there?
So right now there's one air attack reconnaissance plane that's circling the fire. That's basically a contact to help crews on the ground visualize what's happening on the fire. And they've ordered up 2 air tankers as well to put retardant on the fire. Prevention? Yeah, do you have a question or?
General prevention tips what can the public do?
Yeah, so this time of year, well, any time of year, 9 out of 10 wildfires in Texas are caused by humans. So prevention goes a long way because that means 9 out of 10 fires could be prevented. So things like equipment use, running chainsaws, running rock saws, cutting metal, welding, anything like that could create a spark that could cause a fire. Good spot for a press conference.
I originally chose this spot because there was no helicopters. The helicopters were over there.
Have you guys seen more fires than usual this summer, and what's the anticipation for the next couple months now that the weather is not going to drop off anytime?
This is the most activity that we've seen in the past couple of years for sure. It compares to some other years, but we're not quite as bad as we were in years like 2011. We're not at the same numbers for acres burned or amount of fires. I actually have statistics that I can pull up on that pretty quickly here. bear with me. It's up accurate as of Monday, so, but I can pull that up. Maybe. Here we go. Okay, so this is as of July 22nd, so it's the 27th now. So between January 1st and July 22nd, Texas A&M Forest Service responded to 6,809 wildfires for over 596,000 acres. In the past 7 days, Texas A&M Forest Service responded to 205 wildfires for over 22,000 acres. And again, that was as of Monday.
Is it over 200 in the last 7 days?
Yes. Yes, and yesterday around the state, we were requested to 15.
And what's the outlook, would you say, for the next couple months for the summer?
The national predicted outlook is showing fire potential continuing through October. That's as far out as they go, but they're showing fire potential in Texas lasting into October.